You're listening to the RTI Press Pass powered by Rocky Top Insider.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Rocky Top Insider Press Pass podcast. My name is Rick Butler, joined by my good friend, your good friend, that is Ryan Sylvia. No Ryan Shumpert today. He has other duties for the company. He is working a little SEC media days as Tennessee basketball season is right around the corner as well. There's plenty to get into. And before we get into any sort of football preview, wanted to let you know that there could be a good basketball surprise here on the RTI Press Pass right around the corner. So make sure you're looking for that. But as always, we have my good friend, your good friend. I just said it. That is Ryan Sylvia. Hey, good morning, my friend. Happy Wednesday to you and happy third Saturday in October week. It's always a fun one around these parts when this game is right around the corner.
Yeah, and it's finally fun again. I think, for about 20 years, it wasn't very fun, even in Knoxville. Obviously, you wake up for it, you get excited if you're a Tennessee fan in the dark days of Tennessee football recently, but not a lot of success there. Now it feels like, Josh Heupel's 2-2 in the series. He's won both games at home, lost both games on the road. He's 1-0 against Kalen DeBoer since he took over that job. So there is actually a feeling of, man, Tennessee could go in there and win this one maybe, no matter, what the AP poll rankings and the difference there and things like that. It still feels like Tennessee's got a fighting chance in this one every year, which certainly makes the third Saturday in October a lot more fun, even just to cover from a media perspective.
Yeah, this is one of college football's premier rivalries, and there's no surprise when it was announced that it was going to be one of Tennessee's annual opponents moving forward. But you're right, for a long time, this was quite the lopsided rivalry. I know when you were growing up, when I was growing up, it's kind of a lot of the memories that we've had, but things have really kind of turned the corner here in the last couple of years. And you've seen Tennessee with some big victories at home in 2022 and 2024. But I think maybe the question this year is, can Tennessee go in there and break that streak of, not the streak of not winning in Tuscaloosa, although I believe that one goes back to the early 2000s as well. But just you've kept having the home team win over the last couple of years. Which team can win on the road first? Maybe Tennessee can do so this weekend, but that is one of the things that we will get into. Man, we're already at the halfway point of the football season. That's wild for me to think about. And maybe some of that has flown by because we haven't been on the road too much. We'll be on the road a lot more here coming up, especially to close out this month with
not Missouri's
Tuscaloosa
schedule,
and Lexington.
Have you seen
it's not Missouri's schedule.
They've traveled 0 miles this year, and we're halfway through the year.
Yeah, I believe it was 6 straight home games to start out the year. That's
unbelievable.
That's unbelievable. But I wouldn't trade that, though, because that's just so much travel in the back half of things when things get cold as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And winning on the road, obviously, too, it's been to varying degrees with Josh Heupel at Tennessee. There always seems to be that one that they dropped that they shouldn't. Maybe they got out of the way and survived it against Mississippi State, but it feels like there's 3 humps for Tennessee to get over under Josh Heupel still, besides the SEC championship and national and those big postseason accolades. Still hasn't beaten Alabama on the road. Still hasn't beaten Florida on the road. And still hasn't beaten Georgia. He was a 40-yard field goal away from getting the Georgia one under his belt.
Yeah, and really about 3 to 5 yards on that kick.
Yeah, or really just a 4th down stop away in that game too, which is, I always go back to that of the defense gets off the field there and you win that game. So he was very close to getting one of the 3. We'll have the chance to do the other 2 this year as well, with Tennessee going to Gainesville and obviously Tuscaloosa this Saturday. So, feels like the Florida one's more so you got to get it this year. Florida doesn't, they're not
gotta win. You gotta win.
You can't lose it. You can't lose that one.
You can't lose.
Florida doesn't look bad, right? Like they beat Texas. They didn't look bad against A&M, but it's the worst they've been in a good bit. And with the 9-game schedule and they're not being one of the permanent rivals for Tennessee, you don't have that chance again except for every 4 years. So you got to take advantage of it while it's here before that chance goes away, I think. Otherwise, it'll be kind of still that smirch on the record. So those are the 3 ones that's like you still have to mark that one off the list, and it's a big opportunity this Saturday to the Alabama one, although they will get that chance every other year still.
Yeah, and this one's a high-stakes game, obviously coming up in Tuscaloosa, like you had alluded to, not just from the rivalry aspect first and foremost, but also because both of these teams are They do have one loss in the season, but they're both riding multi-game win streaks coming into this game. The loser's going to come out with a second loss, and the winner's going to leave with a resume boosting victory on the win-loss record. So there are a lot of stakes in this game, and this game will be played under the lights in Bryant-Denny Stadium, coming up 7:30 p.m. on ABC Saturday, October 18th, the third Saturday of the month. Back to the third Saturday, by the way. I know sometimes it gets a little bit tricky there. This is a big one for Tennessee, obviously. I think that's a lot of what that is saying the obvious. But this is a big one. Top 11 matchup between 6th ranked Alabama and 11th ranked Tennessee. For Alabama, we've talked about Tennessee a lot this season, but for Alabama, man, just a remarkable start to the season with the loss to Florida State. They were dead and buried by a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people had written them off and started the Kalen DeBoer kind of slander train, especially online. I mean, you remember that video of the lady in Alabama who was trying to win the lottery, and she said that the first thing that she would do is buy Kalen DeBoer's buyout if she won that money. I don't know if she'd be saying that right now, because what Alabama's done since is they beat up on Louisiana Monroe and Wisconsin. Okay, big whoop there. I think Wisconsin especially, you've seen them kind of fall off this season. Not a huge mark there, but since then, a win at number 5 Georgia, a home win against number 16 Vanderbilt, a win at number 14 Missouri, and then obviously a game coming up against number 11 Tennessee. This is a monster 4-game stretch. I mean, all the 4 of those teams in the top 16. Maybe there's a little bit of attrition that will play into factor in this game for the Crimson Tide, but heading into this game on that 3-game win streak is something that it is remarkable in the way that they've turned things around. They've rewritten the narrative when a lot of people had them buried away early in the year and was kind of just waiting for them to kind of die off this season a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I had plenty of doubts going into the season about them. I had plenty of doubts after that Florida State game. You have to, as someone that still has, some doubts about if they can truly win a national championship this year, you still have to tip your cap to what they've done, especially in that 3-game stretch that you just talked about. Like that, none of those 3 are easy wins. Like it's Vanderbilt, sure, but like Vandy's pretty good. Like they're a tough out, and you got them at home, and there's the revenge factor and things that go into that, but it's still a tough out. Obviously, the Georgia wins a massive one, even though Georgia doesn't look like the Georgia of the past few seasons where they look untouchable. That's still a really good program that Kirby Smart has over there. And then that Missouri one's probably the most impressive of the bunch. You go on the road and you handle business against a Missouri team where, yeah, they're untested and they have a pretty easy schedule. But I think we can all agree that that's still a pretty good Missouri team, whether they do end up making the playoffs or not. Like that's a solid Missouri team. And you go in and you survive that road clash. So I am curious to see, if the attrition plays into it, like you mentioned, if
Right.
it is like the end of a 4-game stretch against ranked teams like that does wear on you. But at the same time, it's Tennessee, it's third Saturday in October, and you look at it as simple as like, man, Alabama wins this game. You don't want to say anyone's a lock for the playoffs, but like it'd be pretty impressive if they messed it up down the stretch at that point to not make the playoffs. And then if they lose the game, you got your back against the wall because now you're probably a loss away from being eliminated from the playoffs, or at least it gets really hairy if you try to get it in 9-3. I think that's a big question mark if that resume is going to be good enough. Maybe this season it will be with how much the SEC is seemingly beating up on itself, but still that feels like a tall ask. And then from the Tennessee side of things, it's the same situation. You win this game, man, you still have to beat Oklahoma at home. We'll see what John Mateer looks like by then. You still have to beat Florida on the road and Vanderbilt at home and some other big games. You got to feel pretty good about your chances to make the playoffs. You lose this game.
Yeah.
Now your back's against the wall when you look at that schedule of all those ranked teams. So it is just such a cut and dry, like, man, the winner of this game's in such a good position for the postseason. Loser of this game, everything you want is still on the table, but man, it makes it a lot of things a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they call October moving month, right? And not that one of these teams is going to get moved out of position with a loss. This is the SEC. This is a highly competitive league. You can, go and find some more wins later on in the season, like you were alluding to earlier a minute ago, boosting up that resume a little bit. But you don't want to be going into that back half of the schedule with that second loss. And I think that was one of the biggest things about that Mississippi State game for Tennessee is that they escaped that second loss in September. Being able to go into October, kind of carry things forward, go into this Alabama game, especially with at least a little bit of wiggle room. But you're right. There's no way to put it. And we're not going to sit here and talk about, what happens if Tennessee gets that second loss and then they're going to have to do things from there. the end of the day, Tennessee needs to go out there and they need to win this game so that we aren't having those conversations after the game on Saturday night or, a week from today on the press pass next Wednesday. This would be really beneficial if Tennessee could go in there and make a mark and make a statement, because ultimately Tennessee hasn't really made that statement yet this year. I mean, yes, they played Georgia well and they got Georgia down to the wire, but there hasn't been that kind of resume defining win yet.
Yeah.
You can look at Alabama and you can say, hey, well, 3 straight wins over top 16 SEC teams. It's a pretty good statement to the committee, to the college football universe, to whoever else. Tennessee really hasn't had that yet. If anything, people are looking at Tennessee and saying, why'd you only beat Arkansas by 7 or excuse me, by 3? Why'd you only beat Mississippi State by 3? And you and I watched all 8 quarters of those 2 games combined. I think that we can kind of sit here and say that, all right, well, Tennessee, yeah, only a combined 6 points of win margin. All right, but Tennessee played resilient in those games. And yes, there were things to work on, but I think they showed something in those games that you don't necessarily see when you're just looking at, things on paper. Excuse me, combined 9 points. That was a 6 or a 7-point win in the Mississippi State game. So I guess 10. My math is a little bit off as I'm talking fast, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Overtime games, and I in the back of my head, I was like, I'm pretty sure that was a touchdown, but I'll let them have it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. It just took a minute to get pulled up, but either way, this would be that win for Tennessee, and it's obviously going to be a difficult task. There's going to have to be a lot of things that go right in Tennessee's favor, but this would be, I think, that win that gets people talking for Tennessee about, hey, how this is a playoff caliber team. This is a team who has gone on the road in a hostile environment. They've gotten things done. Here's a Tennessee team that we felt like was good, was ranked in the top 15 pretty much the whole season, but now they've got a big one on the resume to kind of carry that forward into the second half of the season.
Well, yeah, because you're right. Tennessee doesn't have that signature win. Like our wins at Mississippi State and, against Arkansas, even though Arkansas's, without their head coach, but you kind of get that little bit of an interim coach boost sometimes too. And there's so many unknowns. Are those good wins? Sure. Are they great wins and resume boosting wins? No. But on the other hand, that's why I said, even if Alabama does fall to 9-3, there's a 9-3 team that does make the playoffs. It might be tough to not be Alabama because of that 3-game stretch. Like they've proven that they can win big games. We'll see what everything actually looks like. It's, all just fodder until you get to the end of the season. You actually see what the resumes look like and what everyone ends up at. But Tennessee doesn't have that luxury of like pointing out like, hey, we won this game. Tennessee can't really do that at the end of the season unless they go in and they win this type of game. But I think everyone likes a tier list. You look at the tier list of the SEC football teams right now. In the past, it was usually at the top tier, like 1 or 2, like a Georgia and an Alabama, or last year maybe a Georgia and a Texas, and then it was everyone else. And there was that big jump where a couple teams kind of felt almost untouchable at times, and then you get to the rest of the group. It doesn't feel like there's that top tier of 1 or 2. It feels like there's a top tier of like 6 teams right now. Like everyone's got an issue. You can argue who should be ranked first in that tier, but to me, like that tier, obviously the Alabama, Georgia, I'll even still put Texas in there, A&M, Ole Miss, LSU, Tennessee. Like it's like 6 or 7 teams right now. They're all like, yeah, those are playoff contenders. And if you get in, you see what happens. And they're as good as really it feels like anyone in the country. Especially after what Penn State obviously fell apart, and then Oregon, that win at Penn State doesn't look as good. I still think it's a really solid win, but it doesn't look as good. And then they turn around and lose to Indiana. So those teams feel like they're pretty much, get in the playoffs and see what happens. And the next group, we go to the list, and I think that's probably maybe the South Carolinas and the Mississippi States. Those are still good teams. Like those are still tough outs, and Tennessee fans know how good of a team Mississippi State can be, as they took Tennessee to overtime on the road just a couple weeks ago. So if you beat those second teams, it's what you need to do, and it's what you should do. And if you want to make the playoffs, you have to beat those second teams. But I'm also not going to read in too much to like Tennessee won those 2 games by a combined 10 points. Like at the same time, to me, it's still like, man, those are still going to be tough outs. And there's really like 1 or 2 SEC teams right now that you're just kind of like put them to the side. Like Kentucky's the only one that's like, man, that just feels like an automatic win almost. But besides that, it's like any team you play in the SEC is going to be tough.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, we'll start diving into a little bit more of this preview here for the 3rd Saturday in October coming up this weekend in Tuscaloosa. But first, as always, a couple of quick housekeeping notes. Again, I just mentioned to you that coming up here in the near future, we are going to have a little bit more basketball content here on the Rocky Top Insider Press Pass, and that is spearheaded by our own Ryan Shumpert. So be on the lookout for that. An easy way to do that is by subscribing to the Rocky Top Insider YouTube channel. You do that, you pretty much get an endless stream of Tennessee athletics content, whether it is basketball press conferences from the men's and women's teams. Obviously, we're going to continue forward with all of the Tennessee football coverage. You're getting press conferences on Monday, on Tuesday, on game day, things of that nature. But then also all the great content that we bring you as well. The RTI Press Pass on Wednesdays. You have the RTI Lowdown with Bob Baskerville and Chris Lowe. That is on Sunday nights. And, of course, Pancakes and Bacon with VFL Kyler Kerbyson and Reed Bacon coming to you on Monday mornings. It's a loaded slate here at Rocky Top Insider, and if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you're going to get all of that coverage and more. But also for those podcasts, make sure you're subscribing wherever you get them as well on your favorite podcast app. I know all three of those are on the platforms of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcast. Wherever you need to find your podcast, I can pretty much guarantee that those three shows are going to be there as well. So a little bit of everything, a good mixture of things on the RTI network as we continue carrying you through into the back half of this football season. Then obviously beyond with basketball right around the corner and baseball even down there on the horizon with the RTI Diamond Pass as well. That will be returning for another great year next spring. Otherwise, though, hey, make sure you're checking out our good friends over at WATE Channel 6. That is Sam Rothman and the gang over there. We thoroughly enjoy working with them during postgame. We love being on TV. That's a little bit of a fun aspect for us. But they also put out some great work over there. So make sure you're checking out WATE 6 Plus. That is the smart TV app. I know myself, I've got an Amazon Fire TV. It was very easy for me just to go to my TV's app store, search WATE, and then there it is, the WATE 6 Plus Smart TV app. You can find a ton of great local content if you're in Knoxville. If you're not in Knoxville, well, hey, you can keep up with some of the local content going on around here. And then, of course, there is a massive sports section as well as the sports team over there at Channel 6. They put out a ton of great content, so make sure you're checking out that. And you'll also be able to find the Press Pass and the RTI Lowdown over there in case that is how you'd like to watch your episode of the show. So make sure you're just checking out everything heading into the back half of the season. I know there's a ton of ways to get the content, but that's for you. You can choose your best and your favorite way to do so. You can lock in that way, and you are good to go heading forward. All right, speaking of heading forward, let's go ahead and head into this game coming up on ABC, 7:30 p.m. from Bryant-Denny Stadium. Number 11 Tennessee traveling to take on number 6 Alabama. Sylvia, I'll kind of leave it to you. Where do you want to start with this thing, offense or defense? Because I think there are obviously really interesting paths we could take with both sides of the coin here.
I'll go Tennessee's defense because I think that's the key to win. Like I'm confident Tennessee's offense will put up points. I'm not saying they're going to drop a 50 burger or something on Alabama, but they'll put up enough points that you should feel like you could win the game. It's the question to me is, can Tennessee's defense stop an Alabama offense that's looked pretty good? And to me, that all starts with the run. Obviously, Tennessee has not defended the run well. Some of that falls on Tim Banks' shoulders. Sure, the defense coordinator. I think a lot of it doesn't, though. Like you look at some of the plays against Arkansas, there was a lot of times where Tennessee was in position to make a play. The play call was correct. It was a well-timed blitz. You just take a bad angle. You can't contain Taylor Green. Now, Taylor Green's a phenomenal athlete, and Tennessee, Ty Simpson can move a little bit, right? Like he's not a stone guy in the pocket. Like he's not made of stone. He's not Taylor Green, though. Taylor Green was a headache for Tennessee. And I think that showed up too a couple times in kind of those option plays where Tennessee was a little too keyed in on Taylor Green at times, and then all of a sudden Mike Washington's off to the races. So with all that said, you have to stop the run if you're Tennessee against Alabama. Is it going to be easier? I'm not necessarily sure because the offensive line for Alabama is going to be a lot better than Arkansas's. And Jam Miller, if he is able to go, he'll be in concussion protocol this week, so we'll see what his availability looks like throughout the week. If he's able to go, he's a dynamic running back, one of the best in the SEC as well. But you just got to make plays sometimes. That was something Reed Bacon over on Pancakes and Bacon, which you can watch on RTI. I was saying, like, just got to lock in, right? Like, you just got to go make the play sometimes, right? And Tennessee was in position to, and there was a few times where they didn't. I think a lot of that fell on the linebacker's shoulders. Arian Carter's got to play better. Jeremiah Telander got to play better. Edwin Spillman in the second half, since he'll be suspended for the first half after targeting late in the Arkansas game, he's got to play better. There was times it almost felt like they were back on their heels and like trying to read and react a little too. Sometimes you just go up and make a play, go blow up a blocker and make a play. And that goes to the defensive tackles as well. Like David Hobbs was a huge presence to get back for Tennessee. Bryson Easton has shown moments where he can just blow up the line of scrimmage. And Jackson Moy coming back too has been massive the last couple of weeks. You get those guys to continue to play well and maybe even take a step forward. And the linebackers go in, fill a hole, fill a gap, make a play, play with your hair on fire. If you get baited a little bit by play action a couple times, obviously you can't let that happen all game. But if there's a couple times where you're just like, it's 1st and 10, you think they're running the ball, you get in there with your hair on fire and you make the wrong read. Sure, I would rather Tennessee get beat a little bit by that than letting Alabama just run the ball down their throat, like really Mississippi State and Arkansas have both done the last 2 weeks. And then also, Jaden Perlotti, I would love to see get a little bit more run in this game. There's the path for it, considering Edwin Spillman can't play in the first half. He didn't play a lot in that Arkansas game, but I think there's one thing about him, he's going to play hard. Like he was all over the field. He was going at full speed. He was making plays. He might make the wrong read every once in a while and do things like that as a freshman, but I think you would love to have a guy that's just going to go in and just play at 110% every single snap. I think that could go a long way too. But that's, to me, it's the linebacker position. That's what I keep coming back to. They're going to roll in the safeties and try to stack the box, you would think, which worked a little bit in that Arkansas game to slow them down in kind of that third quarter where Arkansas didn't score. But to me, a lot of it just falls on the shoulders of the linebackers. Because if you sit there the whole game, you're like, gotta stack the box, gotta roll the line or the safeties in. Ty Simpson's great quarterback, right? Like he looks awesome. They have 3 incredible receivers. They'll punish you through the air. So Tennessee's got to stop the run, and they've got to do it in kind of their base defense.
Yeah. Hey, you remember the name Quartey Sapp, former Tennessee linebacker? He was giving Jaden Perlotti a little bit of praise on social media. I saw this week, saying that on especially one play where I believe it was Taylon Green taking a kind of a big banana turn towards the sideline and then down the field. He tracked him down really well, and I believe Quartey Sapp kind of pointed out how good of an angle in pursuit that Perlotti made there. A guy who was banged up during spring camp when he first got here. A guy who was maybe even a little bit banged up during fall camp. I can't remember it entirely too well. But William Inge, and William Inge is going to play the guys who practice well and who prepare well leading for a game. Maybe that's kind of the starting point of Jaden Perlotti starting to get his legs under him a little bit and being able to be a player here. We'll see. I mean, that's obviously a huge test. Not that it's going to be a season debut or anything, because we just saw it last week against Arkansas, but it would be a huge test to go into Bryant-Denny Stadium and be an impact player, even if it's only for a couple of plays. I don't think you're saying much more than that, but he might be able to give you a little bit of a spark. That's a great assessment on Alabama's running game. And I do think that Jam Miller, the status of his availability will be huge for this game for Tennessee and their ability to shake things up, but not even just for Tennessee, but for Alabama and how balanced they are, because I do believe that with Jam Miller in the lineup, they have a chance to be really balanced. And we often talk about how Tennessee's run game sets up the pass game, or at least it has for the most part under Josh Heupel. I also think that's true about what Kalen DeBoer's offense looks like for the Crimson Tide right now. Even though it's not the greatest run game in the world, I think it does enough to set up a pass game, which is pretty darn good, which is ranked number 3, which is very effective in the red zone. I believe it's 27 of 28 attempts they've been able to find points. 20 of those have been for touchdowns as well. So if Jam Miller is not able to go, sustained a concussion in last week's win over Missouri, that's big for Tennessee. We'll find out. We're recording this on Wednesday morning. The first availability report will come out on Wednesday evening. So be sure to stay tuned to RockyTopInsider.com for that one. But Sylvia, you and I were talking about this beforehand. We kind of feel like this could be a situation where he's listed as questionable for a lot of the week, but we could certainly be wrong. We are not A, doctors, B, in Tuscaloosa. It feels like he might be on track to play this weekend. So we're going to kind of, talk about this with the mindset that he is. What if Alabama's at full strength and they do have him back? Shifting notes from that, though, I want to go back I want to go over to Ryan Shumpert's preview that he wrote over at RockyTopInsider.com. Another great one. He does very good with kind of these scouting the opponent type looks at the beginning of the week, each game week. And he had a good line here. He talks about Alabama's weaknesses. And this is his good line, quote, "Here's a pair of Alabama weaknesses that you don't expect to see. The Crimson Tide is not very good at running the ball, and they're not very good at stopping the run. maybe Tennessee's got a chance to kind of step up there and, like you said, potentially put some more bodies in the box, be able to stop the run a little bit more. But if you put more bodies in the box, you're obviously leaving yourself open a little bit more to the pass game. And that, for me, is the biggest concern with Tennessee on defense. I know we've talked a lot about Tennessee's inability to stop the run. You certainly don't want to make Alabama any better than they already are. If they're average at best, and average in the SEC is a good thing, by the way, but if they're average at best, you don't want to turn them into world beaters, right? I think that's something that Tennessee cannot do if they want to win this game. But you also really got to focus on that pass game. And we've seen Tennessee's secondary, for as good as Colton Hood has been, because he has been great, maybe even playing himself into a first-round draft pick type status. Tennessee's secondary overall as a whole has struggled at a lot of times, and they've struggled to let up the explosive play, but they've struggled to let up sort of the minor plays as well. If I'm looking at the stats right now, again, Alabama's pass offense ranked number 3rd in the SEC. Tennessee's pass defense ranked last in the SEC. 257 yards per game they're giving up. And just to give you a little bit of context and comparison, Oklahoma's defense is the best pass defense in the league. They're at about 126 yards per game. So obviously opponents and everything like that is going to factor in, but that kind of gives you the margin of where the top is compared to where the bottom is. Oklahoma 126, Tennessee 257. This is a huge one for Tennessee. And I don't know if this game's going to turn into a shootout. It very well might. This game might be in the 3rd and 4th quarter, and we're saying, who's got the ball last between Joey Aguilar and Ty Simpson? Because Ty Simpson's been good. When you give him enough time in the pocket, and especially when you give him a clean pocket, he is cerebral. Ryan Shumpert, going back to his preview a second ago, he often lists some of the most impact players. Well, for this one, he listed Alabama's entire receiving trio. And that is, let me pull it up real quick. Here it is. Bernard, Ryan Williams, and Isaiah Horton. Those are 3 very talented players. And I like what Ryan said here as well. He mentioned, look, in fact, Alabama and Tennessee might have the 2 best receiver trios in the entire SEC.
Yeah.
I can see this game turning into a shootout through the pass game. If that happens, it takes me in kind of 2 directions with my mind. Number one, Tennessee's secondary has been susceptible to the pass game. That makes me a little bit nervous. However, the pass rush has been incredible. Maybe that can be some of the equalizer, and not necessarily equalizer to get things on the same level, but at least give Tennessee's defense, the secondary, I mean, a little bit of wiggle room. Yes, if the secondary hasn't been that good, I think the best thing they can do is try to move Ty Simpson out of the pocket, make him uncomfortable, rattle him a little bit. And you know what? The defensive line has to help out the secondary by A, getting pressure on the quarterback, but B, getting off the field on 3rd down. I know that's not, the front 7, it's not entirely on them, some of Tennessee's 3rd down struggles, but you can't keep putting this secondary, I think, in positions to be susceptible against this Ty Simpson offense. So to me, the passing game is going to be a massive part of this on both sides of the ball. But it does make me a bit worried about Tennessee's chances. I know they can score points. I know they can play in a shootout. I have no doubt about that. But I think that Alabama's going to be able to find their licks in against Tennessee's secondary, whether that be on the deep end versus the safeties, depending on who Tennessee is rotating in, who they have on the field at times. I mean, we saw a good bit of Sidney Walton right at maybe in the first half of the game last week versus Arkansas. This is a Ty Simpson quarterback. This is an Alabama passing game that I think can pick them apart if they so choose. I think a lot of it's going to be up to Tennessee's pass rush, who has been phenomenal, absolutely stupendous at getting to the quarterback and putting pressure on. That, to me, is one of the absolute biggest keys to the game, because that, to me, is how I see a Tennessee weakness getting mitigated by one of Tennessee's biggest and best strengths.
And I think it's getting there with 4. Ty Simpson's been good when you bring blitz. When teams have brought in the linebackers or brought in a nickelback or corner and try to blitz, Ty Simpson's been good about finding where the blitz come and throw it into the pressure, getting the ball out and picking up positive
using
yards.
Those receivers.
Yeah, Tennessee's gonna, they have to blitz and have to mix in some blitz packages and things like that. But for the most part, they're going to have to get there with 4. And part of that, too, is because you don't want to leave some of those guys in the secondary, not to pick on Ty Redmond. Like, he's been really good for a freshman, but he's a true freshman. And he probably didn't expect to be playing this much. Tennessee didn't expect to have to play him this much at this stage in the year. So you don't want to leave him one-on-one with no safety help and things like that against that trio of receivers. And then that also goes back to, against Arkansas, Colton Hood and Ty Redmond just shadowed their guy. Like Omega Blake's his last name, right? For Arkansas, their best was number 9, their best receiver. Colton Hood
The
stayed at
bird
home the whole game.
watcher.
Yeah, he would flip sides. Colton Hood would follow him. It was just he was stuck to him the whole game. You can't really do that against Alabama because they have 3 really good receivers. So it's not as simple as you stay on this guy and this guy is a big. There's no drop off. It's so that's kind of out of the, maybe they'll still pick a guy and try to do it. I can't. I wouldn't bet on that though. I would think it'd look more like what they've gone to in the past, where he's kind of stay to your side. But yes, it's similar to the run game where I said every once in a while you're gonna have to stack the box. You're gonna have to bring a safety in, but you've got to try to beat it with kind of that base defense, that 2 high or 3 high safety look. If you bring the nickel back there in the pass game, you've got to get home with those 4 rushers. And obviously, defensive tackles play a role in that. But to me, it's the 2 edge rushers that are going to have really big games at the Leon defensive end. Tyree West has got to live in the backfield. Josh Josephs and Caleb Herring have to continue to play really well. Dominic Bailey's got to get into the backfield a lot. Like they've got to put some pressure on Ty Simpson. The threat of him leaving contain like Jalen Greenwood is not as high either. So you can really kind of try to just hammer the quarterback. And then that's when I think too, you start to see those fumbles again. It's tough to hold on to the football if you're a quarterback and you're just consistently under pressure and getting hit hard and getting hit from the blind side. I mean, think to that Blake Shapen fumble in the Mississippi State when Tyree West just pancaked him from like there's no chance in the world anyone's holding on to that football. With Tennessee's defense giving up so much yards, that's been the saving grace in both the SEC wins so far, is they've just forced turnovers. And it hasn't necessarily been interceptions either. It's been a lot of fumbles. So I think that'll have to be a key to the game too. You got to try to force those fumbles. You got to get home with the pass rushers, with the 4 pass rushers. And then I'm curious to see if they do try to go to a lot of man coverage or if they try to fall into the, because there hasn't seemed to be a good solution either way. In man coverage, you risk some of those guys individually getting picked on. In zone coverage, there's just been some breakdowns and some weak zones, and Boo Carter has kind of struggled in zone coverage at times, it feels like. So I'm curious to see how much they mix that up, how much they go to it, and, down in distance, how that plays into it as well. There's just so many questions on the defensive side for Tennessee, which to me goes back to it feels like the pieces are there, though. Like, sure, they have some, I don't think you love the safety play so far. I don't think you're obsessed with Ty Redmond playing this many snaps. Once again, I think he's been good for a freshman. He's just a true freshman, and you would obviously rather have Jermod McCoy or Ricky Gibson out there at the other cornerback spot opposite of Colton Hood. The linebackers need to play better, but Arian Carter's still has the opportunity to be one of the better linebackers in the league this year. The defensive line's been fantastic, especially now that they're back to full health. The pieces are there. I still trust Tim Banks to be one of the better coordinators in the country. It's just you kind of just got to put it all together. And if you do it in this game, it'd be a big time to do it. And I guess we'll have to wait and see. But you do have to like Tennessee's odds from that standpoint of like the pieces are there to go out and be able to be a good defense. They just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I think some of that is a little bit of wait and see, but you also just want an opportunity for that defense to go out there and prove it, right? That they can be better than that last place secondary in the league and last place at the passing game. Maybe this is a chance to do it. And again, I think there's got to be some synergy between what you're doing up front with the defensive line versus what you're doing out back with the secondary. Defensive line, I think, has to be able to help out the secondary a little bit, and that's by being able to go and put Ty Simpson in, not unpredictable, but just
can't be comfortable.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was looking for. The word uncomfortable. Can't let him go out there and be in comfortable situations. Again, with a clean pocket and plenty of time to throw the ball, he is cerebral. He is nasty. And this is a Tennessee defense that I think that in some ways the Alabama receiving core, the Alabama passing attack is licking their chops about. You saw Bernard's comments on Monday with the next round. He said, and I thought that he had fun phrasing this quote because he did give plenty of acknowledgement to Tennessee's pass rush and saying, look, that's a strength of theirs. They can move up the field. They can put you in uncomfortable positions. But because of that, they're playing some man on the back end. And his exact quote was the field of dreams comment, right? It's a field of dreams to be able to go out there and play. You got to go make opportunities, something along those lines. Former Tennessee quarterback Jarrett Garantano, who, by the way, is all over the sports media world right now. I saw him on the Swain event. I think he was maybe doing some stuff with VQ at some point. I don't know, but he's been all over the place. he tweeted out yesterday, and I think it's fascinating when it comes from a former quarterback who, kind of gets these things. Field of Dreams is a very aggressive analogy. Huge bulletin board material for the Tennessee defense. Well, this is the second week in a row that the Tennessee defense has been able to put some bulletin board material up there in the locker room and on the doors to the practice facility, put the doors to the bathroom, put it on your garage door for all I care. That's a big statement right there. And, maybe Bernard's saying that in the way of, hey, this is, as a receiver, this is just what you want. You want to be able to go out there and play man. I think he's also saying in the way of, hey, we feel like we can beat Tennessee's man, and we feel like we can beat them in a resounding way. That's big bulletin board material for Tennessee. And again, you saw that a little bit last week with Mike Washington and the Arkansas run game. Now,
Tennessee did nothing about it.
They blitzed them right out of the bat. Arkansas's offense, that is, they ran down the field that first drive. I will not forget it. It was 70 yards on the ground, 75 yards in total, only 5 yards of passing. But I did think that over time, Tennessee's defense got a little bit better. At the end of the day, man, you got to be able to, again, it's the cliche things. It's the lock-in side of things, but you got to be able there and show some heart, right? And say, hey, we see what they're saying. We're not going to let this happen, or at least we're going to do everything in our power to slow them down and to give the ball back to our offense, which might be a good transition over to Tennessee's offensive side of the ball. Ryan, 2 words for this game: Joey Aguilar. And I think he's going to have a chance to be big in this game. And I think you're going to get a massive performance out of Joey Aguilar based on not only what Tennessee's offense has looked like lately, as I try to hold back this sneeze, but also based on what Alabama's defense has been in terms of the passing game. And it's a really good secondary, but I think that ultimately Joey Aguilar is going to have some chances to sit back there in the pocket, sort of like what we talked about with Ty Simpson. When you give Joey Aguilar a clean pocket and time to look around the field, he will find the open receiver. And a lot of the times, more times than not, it'll be downfield for a chunk gain.
Yeah, I think Joey Aguilar will do well. And Alabama does have a good, pass defense, whether that's through the pass rush or through coverage and all the things that go into stopping the pass game. But Joey's just been so steady throughout the year. There's so many opportunities where he could have gotten rattled. He could have got rattled in the first series against Syracuse. That's a big moment. And he marched Tennessee down the field, and I think they settled for a field goal, but it was a good drive. He could have got rattled or uncomfortable when Georgia's in town and it's Checker Newland and all the lights are on you and everyone in the country is watching, and he had maybe his best game of the season. He could have gotten uncomfortable in his first road start at Mississippi State when the cowbells are not being rung responsibly and he's sitting there and dealing with crowd noise for the first time that's truly after him. And he, wasn't his best game, but he had a pretty good game and he never looked like he was uncomfortable. And even the 2 interceptions, like, sure, maybe the ball placement could be a little bit better, but it's not like he was making bad decisions in that game. And then against Arkansas, with the season almost on the line, it feels like, and you need to go shot for shot in what felt like it was going to be a shootout in that first half. And it felt so important for Tennessee to respond to everything Arkansas did early in that game. He went out and he literally matched it, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, and then finally got them that lead. I think it was after the first drive in the second half, and Tennessee, didn't look back from there. So he's just been so confident and so comfortable with, which it's like, where does that come from? I guess it's just, built in you from the time you're born, because he hasn't had to deal with these type of situations before, but just hasn't bothered him at all. So is he going to go out and throw for 450 yards and 5 touchdowns and no interceptions? I don't think so. But is he going to go out and probably get over that 200-yard mark again, which he seems to consistently do? I would bet on it. Yeah, I think he'll throw for over 200. I think he'll probably throw for multiple touchdowns. And the big question then is, what does the interception number look like? Now, a lot of his interceptions, you can make the excuse for. This guy slipped. That was probably pass interference, this and that. However, he's had a good number of, oh my God, that should have been picked off. That was a bad decision that hit the ground. So it's kind of, the number probably plays out to be about even at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And 5, I believe it is at this point, it isn't the worst either. If you throw 1 interception, all right, it's going to happen. If you start turning the ball over past just once, that's when it's like, man, you're really hurting yourself and your opportunity to win this game. And that's when I would maybe get a little bit concerned. But I'll still stay with that. I think Tennessee's offense is going to put up a bunch of points. I think the pass game is going to do well, led by Joey Aguilar. I think you'll see Chris Brazzell start to have, get back on track. Now, he was bracketed and double covered and all that stuff a lot against Arkansas, but with the emergence of what Braylon Staley was able to do and what Mike Matthews did in the second half, it's kind of pick your poison almost. And sure, go double team Chris Brazzell. And Tennessee, I think, says, okay, well, we'll spread out to the other guys. So I think that'll do well. And then also, I think Tennessee's run game is going to do well. Alabama doesn't rank well in the run game as a defense. Now, they've played some of the best running offenses in the country. So a lot of that, I think, too, is just looking at who they've played. Like, it's tough to stop Vanderbilt's run with Diego Pavia in the mix as well. It's really tough to stop Missouri and what they've got over there. I still would think, assuming Deshaun Bishop will be good to go, which Heupel said on Monday that he anticipates that being the case. I think Tennessee should run the ball well. I think Deshaun Bishop, he doesn't have the breakaway Dylan Sampson speed, but like for a replacement for Dylan Sampson, I think he's doing just about as well as you would hope. He's very consistent, I think, at not taking negatives. Like, he's not dancing around the backfield. He gets downhill in a hurry, and he's going to pick you up your 3 yards. And then if he has the opportunity, then he'll get a little shifty and try to break it off. And he's really good when he does get those opportunities. But I just think he's a really smart runner. Like, he's like, I'm not going to dance in the backfield when the line of scrimmage isn't. I'm just going to get back to line. We're not going to get behind the chains here, essentially. So if they can get him back, that'd be huge. They need to get Star Thomas back in the mix. And then Peyton Lewis is just a red zone demon too. Like what a annoying thing to have to stop for opponents in the red zone. It is just the massive build and speed of Peyton Lewis.
Torpedo of a runner.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be tough. So all that said, I have really no concern about Tennessee. Like, I don't think this will be a game that Tennessee's offense goes on stalls on the road. I think this is a game Tennessee's offense goes out and puts some pressure on Alabama to respond to what Tennessee's doing. So I guess kind of opposite of what happened this past week, where Tennessee, it felt like at home, you need a response. You need a response. I could see that kind of being the theme the other way around. Maybe Tennessee gets the ball first and they score a touchdown. Feels like Alabama needs a response. They go down the field, they kick a field. Feels like Alabama needs a response. I could see it kind of playing out the opposite way of what that Arkansas-Tennessee game looked like a week ago.
Sure. Yeah. And look, without listening to it back, like, I don't know what I sort of came across as from the defensive perspective. I am considerably more optimistic in what Tennessee's offense can do than in the defense. I do worry significantly about the defense, and that leads me to believe, that leads me into my score prediction, whether that comes at the end of this podcast or Friday on the website. But I'm consistently more, optimistic in what Tennessee's offense can do. There's less holes that I see for them to have. There's less, in my opinion, challenges to face. Obviously, when you're taking on Alabama on the road, that's going to be challenges, galore, just based on the nature of the beast. But I don't think it's something like, hey, Tennessee's got to go, and try to figure out how to get this last ranked passing defense against the top 3 ranked passing offense. There's not one of those, to me, discrepancies here that I think that Tennessee needs to figure out how to overcome. If anything, I think it's Alabama's defense who's trying to figure out how to say, hey, we believe that we have a really good secondary. Sylvia, credit to you for saying that a minute ago. I think some of that is, again, based on who they've played. But I think that Tennessee's offense is going to have a big opportunity. You mentioned Joey Aguilar going above 200 yards. By the way, as SEC Network's Cole Kubelik pointed out, and we posted over at RockyTopinStar.com, 30 straight games for Joey Aguilar going above 200 yards. That is unbelievable. And I understand that they're not all SEC games. They're not all SEC competition. In fact,
but still, you're playing like one half against the non-SEC. So you're doing it in a limited amount of time at that point.
Also, it's 30 freaking games, right? Like, you do 30 of anything. 30 of anything. I don't care what it is. If I take the trash out before all of my neighbors 30 straight Wednesday mornings, credit to me, because that's a long time to be doing something. It's an astounding mark, I think, by Joey Aguilar to hit that. So it includes all 6 of his games so far at Tennessee, included all 11 of the games during his 2024 season at App State. And then because they played in both the conference championship game and a bowl game, they played 14 games. The Mountaineers did in 2023. You got to go back to his season opener in 2023, his debut with the Mountaineers, to where he only threw for 174 passing yards. That was the last time that he is not throwing for 200 yards. I absolutely think he's going to hit that number on Saturday. Hell, I think he's going to hit 300 passing yards on Saturday. I just think that's the type of opportunity that he has to go out there. It's not just all about Joey Aguilar, though, and you sort of hit it on the head a second ago. It's also about Tennessee's receivers. And I think that if Alabama's going to say, okay, well, we think that Chris Brazzell is really a threat with his size, his catch radius, his ability, we're going to put some extra pressure on him. Tennessee might not have another guy who can go and out jump someone down the field, but they've got some guys with some nasty speed who can make some things happen on the other side of the field. I think that Tennessee's got the ability to exploit that. But one thing that I would prioritize for Tennessee's receivers is being able to have some yak to the catches, right? Some yards after the catch. I just think that anything that they can sort of give this passing game a little bit more, not to say that the passing game needs it, but I think that if you can kind of, make that secondary work a little bit more, kind of get them out of position a little bit more, try to get a little bit more yards down the field, you're helping everybody out. So I don't know what this is going to look like in terms of how Alabama's going to scheme against Chris Brazzell. Maybe they scheme against some of the speed from Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley on the other side of the field, or however they line up. I don't know what it's going to look like, but what I do know is that Alabama's pass rush, I don't think is too threatening. Again, that's in context for an SEC defense who, is pretty good and above standard as is. But I don't think it's too threatening. I think that Joey Aguilar is going to have time in the pocket. He's going to be able to find his receivers downfield. You look at all the different film breakdowns that have gone out about Joey Aguilar. Something that he did that maybe Nico Iamaleava did not do is he's a lot better at working through those progressions. I think he's going to have time to work through. I think he's going to have time to get his eyes around. And I think he's going to be able to find the receiver downfield. Over to the running game, because you had mentioned that a second ago. Tennessee's got a chance in this to rip off the explosive run. And you mentioned it a second ago. You said it very nicely, so I won't go back and repeat all of that. Even if it isn't from a breakaway speed guy like Deshaun Bishop or something like that, I think that Tennessee's got the ability are going to have the opportunity to rip off some big runs. And that's sort of Alabama's MO so far this season. If I go to the stats real quick and I go up here to rushing, Alabama's run defense is 13th in the league. They're letting up, it looks like, about 156.67 yards on the ground per game. Now, in my research, I think one of the things that I figured out, and one of the things that other people have been talking about, was that it's not like they're just getting gashed all the time, but it's average gain, explosion, right? That feels like something that Tennessee can really work with. If you're telling me that Peyton, not necessarily Peyton Lewis as much, but if Star Thomas, if Deshaun Bishop, if they can keep getting some of those standard runs that they're attuned to, I think they are going to have the ability to break off that explosive play down the field. And then we know that Tennessee can build off of that from the passing game as well, how those two things do work in synergy. So I expect Tennessee to be able to run the ball fairly well. But I think that one of those two things is going to play a little bit more of a factor against the Bama defense than the other. And to me, it's going to be the passing game. So I think that Tennessee's run game is going to do good. I think it's going to be used more to set up the passing game. And I think the passing game, if you're Tennessee and you got a chance to win this game, you're coming back to Knoxville with a victory. I think you're looking at Joey Aguilar and the receivers about kind of the shootout that they were able to go out there and win, because I don't think that Tennessee's defense is going to be able to stop very much, especially if Jam Miller is back in the fold. So I think you're placing basically the Joe Milton MVP crown on Joey Aguilar's head if Tennessee does pick up this win, because I think that Tennessee is going to need to win a shootout if it goes in that direction. And you're looking at Joey Aguilar and these receivers to do so.
I think that's fair, and I think it is interesting to think about the yards after catch that you talked about too, because if Alabama goes out and they say you're not taking the top off this defense and we're not letting Chris Brazzell get behind a corner with no safety help and things like that, then that does give you a lot of opportunities to slide Braylon Staley over the middle, and there's a lot of green space. Yep. And it might not be a 80-yard touchdown, but you'll certainly take a 40-yard gain, and now you're at the Alabama 30. And then you look at the run game, and you're right. Teams have hit on some big runs against Alabama. Missouri ran for 163 against them, but Missouri is also leading the conference in rushing. But also that's not, adjusted for opponent. Missouri's played a very weak schedule all at home to this point. So there's both sides of the coin there. Arkansas second in the conference. Then it's Tennessee in terms of rushing yards. Tennessee's third in the conference in rushing. And then you look at passing, they're first in the conference in passing yards. And it's not even, I guess it's kind of close with Ole Miss, but Tennessee's got the lead there going into this week. So I think you're right. Tennessee's offense is going to have to score, at least 30 points to win this game. And maybe pushing towards 40.
35.
But it also depends how the game plays out, because you saw what happened in that Arkansas game, where Arkansas was very okay with making it as short of a game as possible, as least of possessions. And that was literally something Bob Petrino talked about after the game was, you kind of feel a lot better about Tennessee when their offense is on the sideline. It feels like 2022 again. Keep
Oh, good
Tennessee's offense
point.
on the sideline, and you go from there. I could see not just Alabama doing that in some ways and trying to not get in the shootout as much, but I could really see Tennessee. Not that they won't go with their tempo at times, but I don't think Tennessee would hate keeping this game, as much as that kind of goes against a lot of what they do, but keeping it almost lower possession to try to keep their defense off the field.
Here's something else that Ryan Shumper wrote, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. He writes here for RockyTopInsider.com. Alabama also plays keep away. Its offense isn't all that explosive, but they put together long drives and rank 7th nationally in time of possession. This could be a game where you do see a lot of Alabama's offense on the field, depending on how much of those explosive plays against Tennessee's secondary that they do get. So I think there's a bunch of different ways this game could go, and I certainly am excited about it. Now, I want to mention 2 things before we get out, and it's funny because we're at the 50-minute mark right now. Sylvia, we said before this recording, we're like, oh man, Shumpert's not here. Maybe this goes a little bit shorter. Who are we to doubt ourselves on the 3rd Saturday in October that there wouldn't be plenty to talk about? And we might even go past our normal runtime for the press pass. So there's 2 more things I want to mention. And one of them goes back to a little conversation that we all had back in August. But first off, I do think that the 8.5 spread, and I don't know how that continues to move, because boy, did we see the Arkansas line move in the final 48 hours leading into that game. And obviously for good reason. Because Arkansas was able to cover that line. I believe right now it's sitting at around 8.5 or something along those nature.
7.5
something
on
along that
FanDuel.
line. 7.5.
And if you're looking at percent of money on the spread, according to FanDuel, 56% of bettors have Tennessee 56% of the money has Tennessee covering 7.5, and 77% of the bets have Tennessee covering 7.5. For what it's worth, which is not much.
That is interesting. Let me go down here. Tennessee at Alabama. If I'm looking at the big odds comparison, eventually. Okay. 7.5 on FanDuel, 8.5 on BetMGM, 8 on Bet365, 8.5 on DraftKings, 8 on Caesars. So kind of in that range between 7.5 and 8.5. I do think that's a big line, because I do think that if this thing turns into a shootout, then Tennessee can continue to keep up with points. This is a game I would also I'm not a betting man, for the record. Let this all very much be known, because I don't know if I'd be good at it. But I'd also maybe lean towards the over, because I do see both of these teams being able to have the opportunity to score. Now, I did say that last week, and I guess it hit the over.
I don't think
I think it went under. I think it was at 68.5. And I guess if you look at this game, it was at 65 points. So it hit the under. And I was saying all week that I was thinking it was going to hit the over. There was no way it couldn't have hit the over. I still think it's probably going to hit the over. By the way, I'm pretty sure that Tennessee's games have hit the over in all of them but that Arkansas game, which is one of those, statistics that just shows you how weird college football is. But I do think that the overall line is a bit large, especially if you're looking at one of those sites that has the 8.5. That feels too big, and that feels too big for a Joey Aguilar and Josh Heupel-led offense that I do believe is going to be able to put up points. If this was a Tennessee offense that was struggling to put up points, sure, right? Could this thing, kind of snowball, especially at night in Tuscaloosa? Sure. I don't see a big chance of snowballing, even if Tennessee's defense is having trouble. I think that Tennessee's offense is going to be able to catch up.
Yeah, I would agree. I like Tennessee in this game. Like them going into the season, so I'm not going to back off of that with how good the offense has looked. So I would agree. What's the over-unders at 58.5? So you need about, it to be 30 points on each side game to hit that. I think that's probably about right. Just the way Alabama plays, keep away, and I don't. I guess we just touched on that. So I think that's probably about right. I would lean towards the over, but I think it's you just look at how good both offenses are, and maybe that gets a little deceptive of, oh man, that means it's going to be 52-49 again, like in 2022. I could see it being a game similar to Arkansas, where both offenses are just trading blows, but at the end of the day, you're looking and you're like, how was that? What was it, 34-31 in that Arkansas game? So you're like, that score does not it's not a low scoring game. It doesn't reflect the kind of shootout vibe that game had necessarily.
All right, now let's get into it because at the beginning of the season, and you just kind of touched on it right there, you did pick this one as a game that Tennessee was going to win. And en route to your, I believe it was a 10-2 record prediction. No, 9-3 record prediction.
9-3, yeah.
Something like that. And I think that you and I, especially both, I can't speak for Shumpert here, but I think that we probably have moved in closer to maybe a 10-2 prediction. I can't remember what we talked about during the bye week, but you did pick this one as one of the games that Tennessee would win. After the 3-game stretch that Alabama has gone into, beating these 3 top 16 SEC teams, it sounds like that's an opinion you're still holding, and I don't necessarily blame you at all for doing that with the ability that Tennessee has to go out there and score. But just kind of what's your overall feeling heading into this game, sans an actual score prediction, which we will save for Friday morning on RTI.com.
Yeah, I won't give a score prediction, but I'll take Tennessee to win this game. I like them going into the year. I like them now. I still think Alabama's a tad overrated. Now they're better than I thought they would be. I'll admit that. I'm still not convinced they're this world beat. Like they're the same issues that were there against Florida State. A lot of them have been covered up and look better. I could see some of it starting to, come back to earth, I guess. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but I like Tennessee's offense. I like the way that they've put up points. I don't have any concerns about them going on the road and not being able to function. I'm sure there will be a couple of false starts and things like that, but that's also been an issue at home. So I think that'll just continue to be what Tennessee's dealt with occasionally. And Joey Aguilar is going to move the ball. I think the moment will not even look close to too big for him. I trust the receivers to step up and make plays. I think the run game is going to be consistent. I just like Tennessee's offense matching whatever shots Alabama's offense has. And then until Tennessee stops doing it, I'm going to bet on them to create some timely turnovers. Like that's just been the MO for them. Some of that's luck. Some of it isn't luck. Some of it's killing a guy in the backfield when he's not looking and you get a big sack and the ball pokes out. Some of it's Idris Farouk getting his helmet on a ball and doing the coaching points of poking a ball out. Like I think Tennessee will come up with a couple turnovers. I think that'll get the defense off the field a couple times. And then I am going to bet on Arian Carter, and I'm going to bet on that linebacker room. Not that they're going to shut down Alabama's run game, but I am going to bet on them to take a step forward and look like the linebacker room that we thought they could be going into the season and look like a group that is, could be one of the better ones in the SEC. They haven't looked like that at all so far. I think this will be the game where maybe they start to take that step forward and they play with their hair on fire and they go and they blow up some runs, and maybe it leads to a couple mistakes if they get over aggressive, but I think that's just a trade you have to take.
Edwin Spillman, by the way, who is going to be missing the first half, to your point earlier in the pod, I don't know if that's going to be Ben Bolton. We know that he did pass the Navy SEALs test that Tennessee does run and William Minich does run. That's a big deal. I'm not sure I could do that, but I couldn't do that. Let's just get that out of the way. But who's it going to be? With Edwin Spillman waiting to return to the game or waiting to make his debut in the game on Saturday in the second half. Is it going to be Jaden Harmon? Is it going to be a Ben Bolton? Like you mentioned, it's Jaden Perlotti going to kind of find a couple of snaps here and there. I think that's an interesting part to the puzzle. I don't think that Tennessee is going to win this game, and I think that's the first time I've said that all year. I think I might have even talked to myself and I went into Tennessee beating Georgia at home. I just think that Tennessee's defense just has been too susceptible at times to some of the big plays, some of the explosions that have happened in the secondary. I really do see being a problem against Ty Simpson. I do think he's playing exceptional football right now, and I think that Tennessee's pass rush is going to be able to get there. I do not, I don't know what's the word, de-acknowledge. That's unacknowledge. I do not opposite of acknowledge the fact that Tennessee's pass rush can make an impact in the game. Like they absolutely can. If Tennessee's going to win this game, if they're flying on the plane back from Tuscaloosa to Knoxville, while you and I are driving back to Birmingham, those things happening simultaneously, then I think you're again looking at the pass rush and saying, hey, Joshua Josephs, hats off to you. Caleb Herring, hats off to you. Tyree West, hats off to you. Jordan Ross, nice fumble. You created at some point during the game. I think those are going to be some of the things you're saying, but I just don't have enough confidence in Tennessee's secondary with guys who are not named Colton Hood. And Colton Hood can only cover one of those receivers at a time. This is a big Boo Carter game to me, especially if Tennessee is running man. Boo Carter is a freaky athlete, right? Maybe he can step up into a big role and be able to be a difference maker. But I'm at least leaning towards no right now, and I don't necessarily think that's going to change. But if you've been following the show for a while, you know that I can be flip-floppy from Wednesdays to Fridays. So I might talk myself into things. Sylvia might talk me into things. Shumpert might talk me into the way that I'm already thinking right now, because I would have reckoned that he is going to pick Alabama
Negative
in this
Shumpert.
game as well. Negative
Always
Shumpert.
negative.
Death, taxes, Ryan Shumpert picking against the Tennessee Volunteers.
People are saying it.
Anyways, people are saying it. We're not saying it. We would never say that about our coworker. People
I'll
might be
leave
saying
you with two quick thoughts before we get out of here. One
All
of them
right,
to
go
do
ahead.
with Alabama. One of them, maybe some fan interaction, some listener interaction in the chat or in the comments, I should say. Number one, Caden Proctor. Haven't touched on him. Got to figure out a way to stop that dynamic receiver, running back, quarterback of the left tackle for Alabama. Number two, quick hitter, start bench cut. Which Tennessee
I gotta
player?
write this down.
Which Tennessee player from last season? I was thinking about this walking my dog this morning. Which Tennessee player from last season would you most want on this roster? I'm gonna give you three options, and none of them are James Pierce Jr. Omar Norman Lott, Dylan Sampson, or a healthy Jermod McCoy. So obviously Jermod's on the team, but a healthy
That one's
Jermod
not even
McCoy.
close. That one's not even remotely close. It's Jermod McCoy. Number 2 would be Omar Norman Lott, and number 3 would be Dylan Sampson. And you could give me a bunch of defensive players before I think I pick Dylan Sampson. Just because, again, I think that Dylan Sampson's phenomenal in this game. Dylan Sampson, I would bet money on, would have a 30 to 40 yard run at minimum in this game. Like he would snap one through that front line, and he would be off to the races. I have no doubt about that. But again, I don't really have a lot of doubts about Tennessee's offense in general. Jermod McCoy is so far and away the easy answer.
I don't think it's as, I would agree, but I think you could really make a case for Omar. He was
far and away
so good. He's one of the most underrated Tennessee players in a while. He was unbelievable in both stopping the run and as a pass rusher from the interior.
Agreed.
It was so valuable what he brought to the offense or the defensive line.
If you told me that David Hobbs was still out, yeah, I think that could be a really good argument there. But with David Hobbs back in the fold, with him, to me, not really looking like he had a lot of sea legs last week, being able to force that fumble against Taylor Green, and I know they didn't recover, but he still moved the Razorbacks well behind the chains. 5 total tackles, I believe, in the game. 4 of them come assisted. I think that him returning to the field and also having those 4 quarters of opportunity to get his feet back under him, that to me gives me confidence that Tennessee and Jackson Moy, again, having another game to kind of get his legs back under him. I think that those two things give me confidence that Tennessee is going to be there on the defensive line. Now, obviously, it'd be, if you can move one of those back to the second string guys, bolster that group a little bit and put Omar Norman Lott back on that starting line, then that's a nasty combination. But I feel good enough about David Hobbs and his return that I just think that Jermod McCoy, I know we disagree here. I still think it's far and away that he's the guy that I would like to have. I think I'd rather have, like, if you change Jermod McCoy to Ricky Gibson, I think I'd still rather have Ricky Gibson than Omar Norman Lott. I am looking for any sort of help.
What about Gabe Judy Lawley?
Gabe Judy Lawley, probably not. Jacoby Thomas? Yes.
Tennessee could use a Jacoby Thomas right now, to be honest. That would help the
I would take Jacoby Thomas.
Because when they're rolling out some of the safeties to try to stop the run, you still don't love Andre Turrentine and Idris Farouk or Caleb Beasley making a play to put their head and stuff. Jacoby Thomas will take a guy's head off in the box if he needed to. That's probably the biggest loss this offseason for you thought it would have been Nico. Right now, you got to love what Joey Aguilar is doing, so that's out of the question. You try to think of who else it would be, and it's like Squirrel White. I think you really like what Braylon Staley's doing.
Braylon Staley's better than Squirrel White.
Then you start going down the list, and you're like, man, they really did. They lost a lot of depth pieces, but Jacoby Thomas would have been a starter at safety, and I think he'd be having a really good season. That's the one that I think they missed the most.
Yeah, James Pierce Jr., you've replaced that by Platoon Tennessee's platoon
Well,
of edge rushers have
I
been
just meant
phenomenal.
transfers though.
Okay.
Because I would still take Omar. I love what Omar Norman Lott did last year at 10. It's
And the
you
good thing about
now that
Omar, like he would get you an unnecessary roughness penalty at some point in the
oh
game.
yeah, like
That would be
3
in
a
a good
year.
way. Yeah, but it would be in a good way. It'd be in an assertive type. It would be an assertive,
Yeah.
unnecessary roughness penalty. That was like, okay, we're here to play type of
Yeah,
penalty.
he was like a psycho
So
in the bed. He was a psycho in the way you want your pass rusher or defensive
right,
lineman to be a
right.
psycho. Like just every single play just has to be the worst. Lining up as like a guard or a center, and you look up with your hand in the dirt, and you see Omar Norman Lott lining up right in front. You're like, good God, this is a good chance this is going to end very poorly.
Yeah. Also, by the way, to your first question, I do think that Caden Proctor is going to get the ball at some point on
They're
Saturday
going to
because
try.
I think that
They at this
I
point they
think that
have to
Kalen
try every game.
DeBoer in his black hoodie, I think it's one of those things where like he I can't. If I was smarter, I would think of a better example. But you know how when you do something and it's a little bit unexpected and it works, and people are like, "Oh, nice job," and you're like, you kind of start puffing your chest out a little bit. And you're like, "Yeah, I did do that. I did that." And then you're like, "Oh, but I can do it again." And then you do it again, and people are still like, "Oh, this guy." You're like, "Oh, well, now this is going to be my thing."
It's going to
I
be his
think
thing
that
until it goes horribly wrong, though.
until it goes, until it
Until
turns
they
into
try
disaster.
that and Arian Carter gets his helmet on the ball when he's in the Wildcat and trying to run around the edge, and that ball goes
Yeah.
flying, and then it's like, "All right, we're never doing this ever again."
All right,
Done.
we're never giving it. If you weigh
It
more
was
than
fun.
200 something pounds, you're
It
not
was fun
ever
for 3
touching the
games,
ball.
but
Right. So,
but
but
next
until we hit that point, I think that he's going to get a touch on offense.
has he thrown the
100%.
ball yet? I don't think he's throwing it. He's caught it. He's
No,
running.
but
He's lined up as a Wildcat quarterback. I think the natural next step is letting him do a little like Derrick Henry goal line jump pass type of deal.
Joshua Josephs might upend him if he leaves his feet or if he starts putting his eyes in the secondary instead of what's right in front of him. Joshua Josephs, big size difference, but Joshua Josephs might bury him. I don't know.
Maybe
Anyways,
that's
now
the
we're just
break
getting into
Tennessee's
fun.
defense gets to get off the field as they
Maybe
try
it
to
is.
get tricky with Caden Proctor, Iowa Hawkeye legend Caden Proctor, and it just comes fully back to bite them. We'll see.
Yeah,
But
we'll see.
you have to expect them to at least give him one touch.
Yeah, well, I do. I 100% do because I think it's one of those things where once something good starts happening and you feel like, people are giving you credit for it, you don't really want to stop because you're getting credit for it. So, I do think he's going to get a touch. All right, anything we might have missed on along the way? We are past our average here on the press pass, even just with the two of us. My notes look to all be checked off, so I think I'm good on my end. What about you?
I'll just say, let us know in the comments if you made it this far. Who from last year? It doesn't have to be one of those 3. Maybe you pick James Pierce or someone else. Who of the
But pick one of those. I'd say pick one of those because then
Pick
we're
one
all
of those
the same
3.
place.
You get a healthy Jamad McCoy, you
Then
get
you
Omar
can throw
Norman
in an
Lott,
honorable mention.
or you get Dylan Sampson, who would maybe have 1,500 rushing yards already at this point this season. You get one of the 3 choices. I won't even make you rank them. You can rank them if you want, but just let us know one of the 3. Who do you want back the most? Do you agree with Rick? It's Jamad by a mile, or is Omar Norman Lott more in the conversation, or even your pick, or would you just love to see Dylan Sampson back?
Yeah, and then maybe throw in an honorable mention if you could just bring back anybody.
Sure.
That'd be fun as well.
Anybody from
all right,
time,
my friend.
You want Eric Berry? Yeah. Take him.
Yeah. Eric Berry feels like he would be the obvious answer.
Probably, yeah. The reason it was the first one that came to my
head.
You
put Eric Berry in the Tennessee secondary, and I will pick the Volunteers on Friday morning. If anybody can somehow get a time machine and do that. I hand up right now, I will pick Tennessee to win if number 14 is not Christian Charles, but if the other number 14 is in the
Virginia legend Christian Charles.
Hey, go Hoos, baby. Go Hoos.
The punt gets hit. Never forget.
That's a big one. All right, let's go ahead and fly through this. RTI Lowdown with Bob Baskerville and Chris Lowe, Sunday nights at 8:00 p.m. Usually, this last one had to be on Monday because of some travel issues, but we normally shoot for 8:00 on Sunday nights. RTI Pancakes and Bacon with VFL Kyler Kerbyson and Reed Bacon, Monday mornings, 6 a.m. Get your pancakes, get your bacon, get your waffles, get your eggs. Get a little Kyler and Reed action in the morning on Mondays to start off your week strong. The RTI Press Pass coming at you Wednesday mornings and Saturdays after the game, post game. It'll be me, Ryan, and Ryan up in Tuscaloosa this weekend. So we will have plenty of content coming out after that. I think I'm missing something on that note. Oh, that's right. Special basketball RTI Press Pass is going to be coming out very, very soon. So be on the lookout for that. Subscribe to the RTI YouTube channel to find that. And then also check out our friends over at WATE, specifically using the WATE 6 Plus Smart TV app. It is a great one. It is a good one. You should go ahead and put it on your TV so you have the good local content moving forward. If you want to follow Ryan Schumpert, you can do that at rshump00. He'll have a lot of good media day coverage from the basketball side of things today. If you want to follow my good friend Ryan Sylvia, you can do that at Ryan T. Sylvia. And if you want to follow myself, you can do that at Rick_Butler. Again, all three of us will be in Tuscaloosa for the third Saturday in October matchup coming up this weekend from Bryant-Denny Stadium. Stay tuned to RockyTopInsider.com throughout the week as we continue to give a lot of predictions, coverage, content, game injury updates starting on Wednesday night. We'll have everything you absolutely need to know leading into the game on Saturday over on the website. So make sure you are locked in like Tennessee will need to be this weekend. Hey, that's Ryan Sylvia. I'm Rick Butler. Thanks so much for listening to the RTI Press Pass podcast. We will see you in Tuscaloosa after the third Saturday in October.